And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Today we're talking about the game Thunderstone, and I guess I should get out the obligatory fact that Thunderstone is a deck-building game very similar to a very popular game called Dominion. In fact, a lot of it was so similar that I was very surprised that in the rulebook there wasn't any mention anywhere that, like just a thank you to Dominion, but whatever. I mean, it's different enough and feels completely different enough that you may like one and not the other, and you may like them both, or you may like neither. I'm going to show you a little bit about the game and explain why I like it, quite a bit actually, and why you would like it too. Thunderstone is a game where you're building a deck of cards as the game progresses. And you're building this deck of cards so that you can go out and fight monsters and defeat these monsters to get different victory points. There are different cards in the game, and many cards will have a certain amount that they are worth. So like, for example, this torch, when it is used, it is worth 2 to buy things with. Also, you'll notice this little number down here. This torch provides 1 light, which is useful in dungeons, and the torch costs 3 above its name. This is an item. You can also see here, for example, the dagger. It's worth 1 at the store, and it has a weight of 2, which means some characters can use it, but they have to have at least a strength of 2. And it gives a special ability in battle. It's an attack of +1. Then over here we see the militia. He has no value when used to buy things. He has a strength of 2, and he has an attack +1. So because of his strength of 2, he can use that dagger that we just showed in combat. And here we have iron rations, which have a value of 2 when used in the store. And it's an item that a hero can give him strength +2 to carry weapons that maybe he wouldn't normally be able to carry. Why did I show you these 4 cards? Because these 4 cards are in every game. You're also going to take a deck here of random cards. These are random village cards. And you'll be taking 8 more of these and putting these out, piles of those cards on the table. So you might have good berries, you might have flaming swords, the barkeeper may be available, a short sword, a feast, and each of these cards will have different stats. For example, here we see the pole arm, which is an attack +2. It's a good weapon, but it's an attack +6 if the hero has 8 or more strength. So you get a hero that has 8 or more strength, and that becomes a much handier card. Also, we find, for example, here's the barkeep. In the village, he lets you purchase an additional card this turn. Each turn, a player will draw 6 cards, and they'll have 6 cards in their hand. And they're going to be able to use these cards for different things. And one of the things that they can do on their turn is rest. Resting simply takes a card from your hand and destroys it. It's out of the game forever, and then you basically pass your turn. Why would you do that? Well, you might have cards in your deck that you don't need anymore, and it's a good way to slim your deck down. Because the way this game works is, you are drawing these cards, you're playing them, and then when you're done with them, you put them in your discard pile. When your draw pile runs out, you take your discard pile, shuffle it, and you'll draw from it again. So cards that you buy and purchase will go into this deck. And that's another thing you can do on your turn. Instead of resting, you can go to the store. And when you do so, you'll look at the value of all the cards in your hand. So you can see here that I got a dagger. 1 + 2 is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I can buy 1 item that costs 7 or less. So every game, the store or the village is different, has different cards. Here you can see Banish, a spell you can buy, a warhammer, a weapon, a feast. It's an item of food. And there's different things. But one of the most important things is there's 4 heroes available in each game. These are also drawn randomly. And heroes are interesting because they're like the militia that I showed you earlier. But this shows what level the hero is. But that shows his strength, his cost if you buy him, and then any kind of special attacks that he may have. Also, later on, you'll be able to level these heroes up. See, this is the cleric, who can be later on leveled up into the priest, who later on can be leveled up into the bishop. How are you leveled up? Well, every time you kill a monster in the dungeon, you get experience points. They simply look like these, experience points, and you can use those to level up to the next level. And the more powerful the heroes are, the better you'll be able to do in a dungeon. So instead of going to the village or resting by getting rid of a card, you can go to the dungeon and you can fight in the dungeon with whatever you may have in your hand at that point in time. So let's say, for example, this is what I have in my hand here. I have a Warhammer, Arcane Energies, 2 daggers, a cleric, and a squire. Well, each character you have can use 1 weapon, so I give him the Warhammer. Because he's a strength 6, you need at least 5. So he's carrying the Warhammer, which is an attack plus 2, but it's an attack plus 3, so he's an attack of 5. Then I have the cleric, who's a magic attack plus 1, and I give him a dagger, attack plus 1, so he's attack plus 2. So now I have an attack of 7. Now I don't have anyone else to carry the other dagger, so nothing I do with that. And then this is a spell that changes all attacks to magic attacks, because some creatures can only be attacked by magic attacks. So then I look at this first guy in the dungeon, who's in level 1 basically, and it's simply a goblin here. Now, this goblin here has a strength of 4, so I'm easily going to defeat him. If I defeat him, he'll go in my deck. At the end of the game, these points here in the corner, he's worth 1 point. He's worth 1 experience point over here. And so he's kind of useful to kill. However, I could decide to skip him and go to the next goblin, or skip him and go to this dead bone troll. I mean, look how useful that dead bone troll is. Worth 5 points, 2 experience points. Much harder to kill. However, to go to farther cards, you need light to get in there. Some cards give you light. For example, torches give you light. Some heroes give you light. The lantern gives you light. Some weapons give you light. And you need 2 light to go to the first card, 4 light to go to the second card, and 6 light to go to the third card. And if you don't have that light, then your attack is subtracted by each point of the light you don't have. And so once you kill a creature, you take it, put it in your hand, you shuffle everything down, pull out the next creature, and this continues until there's a card called the Thunderstone that comes out. When the Thunderstone comes into the last position, the game is over. At that point, players go through their whole deck and look at these cards and look for the corner, how many points they have. Whoever has the most points is the winner. I really didn't do the game justice there in showing you how to play it, because there's so much involved. There's many different decks of monsters that you can have. You use 3 different decks of monsters that are random. There's so many different heroes, many different items. There's already an expansion announced for this game with more of the same. What do I like about it? I like all the different items on each card. A card could be useful in battle, could be useful in the village, could be useful in both. The heroes all have completely different feels to them, and the idea of leveling them up is neat. Which enemy are you going to attack? Some enemies are harder, some can only be hit by magic attacks, some can need more light to hit them, some will destroy one of the people who's attacking them. Your heroes, if you level them all the way up to the end, can be very useful, and that gets you points too. So you can level up a hero, or you can just wait till a high level hero is available and buy it. So the game is very similar to Dominion, where you're building your own deck, but there's 2 different uses for the cards, both buying and for attacking in the dungeon. It's very thematic. The only negatives I might have about the game is that for new people, there's a lot of icons on the card, and it's not very clear what each icon does. Now that I've played it, I know what they mean. I know this is strength, I know this is experience points, I know which one is light. Maybe that could have been made a little bit clearer, and it's a little bit more involved. While I can get my wife to play Dominion, for example, I wouldn't be able to get her to play this because she's really not interested in the fantasy flavor, and in this game it's very strong. But all that aside, it's a very strong design, it's a lot of fun to play, and it has a lot of legs. I think I can see myself playing this quite a few times in the future, along with some really tremendous artwork. Makes this a very excellent game. Thunderstone.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.